All right. Yeah.
All right, Michael, you're an
Yeah.
average guy.
Yeah.
Why do you wear $400 boots? I go into the Overland Bound forums. You're never there. What's up? So, Overland Bound.
Yeah.
Is it done? You're all about simplicity. You've got the most complicated red arc system I've ever seen. Are you ever going to finish that console?
Jim, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
For doing this. This is a video I've wanted to do for a while. Last year we talked about doing kind of the journey till now of Overland Bound, and then you and I worked together. You did a project, and we did an interview, and I was like, you know what, that was really great, and I'll bet there are at least 5 people out there in the community that would like an interview like that, just to talk about Overland Bound and the journey and where it's going. So thanks, I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Because of that interview, you know, you and I really got into our mostly your history, but it was, I think it kind of drew out in you the fact that you had never really put your history on film, you know, and kind of documented it.
That's right, yeah. And I think it is also a part of, you know, sharing with the community. I've been an open book for years and years and years. It's part of, you know, sharing with the community the whole picture, right? Because even during Overland Bound, it's like, well, there's this snippet, but then I'll go out there on the trail and meet with the community, and we'll just start shooting the breeze, and people are like, wait, what? Jim, I want you to introduce yourself too. You and I both grew up in Humboldt County. Hanging out with you has been, so we know one another. You know the good, the bad, the dark, the ugly, everything about me. And then, you know, just in terms of sensibility, it's been really comfortable, you know, getting to know you over the past year and a half, because we kind of have the same roots. They come from the same same kind of deal.
We've traveled the same creek.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Humboldt.
So say a few words about your background as well. And
Sure. So
yeah,
grew up in Humboldt County. You know, went to Arcata High. You went to Eureka High. So we were actually opposing high schools at the same time, but we didn't know each other then.
Yeah.
My journey started with the Air Force. I went into the military when I was like 18. Did that for a while, got out, actually had like a 17-year break, and then went back in. I served during Desert Storm, Desert Shield, got out after that, came back in. And then I ended up retiring military here in Northern California around Sacramento.
Yeah.
And after I retired, I started my next career, which is in communications, media, and film.
Yeah, which is awesome, and that's something that we share in common. It's been fun doing that. And so the highlight is that in the game of life, Jim's doing better than me. He's retired.
I mean, I retired before you, but let's, I mean, if we put our checkbooks up to each other, you know.
Well, you might be surprised. No, but, you know, you don't stop either. You're retired from one career, and you're just like, you're embarking on this whole new journey with media and filmmaking, and that's a great story as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, when you think back on your life, and you as well, you know, you probably did way more creative things as a child, you know, from drawing, painting, you know, creating things with Legos and all the, you know, those things that we had as kids. And then you become an adult and life takes over, right? And you have to adult.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I have that chance now to go back and explore my creative side.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that you have to adult, and in some ways that might weave its way into the story, you know, here about the journey of Overland Bound as well.
Oh, it's going to.
That's a Jim's gonna make me cry. But hey, no, Jim also won't pull the punches either, because you know it's safe space here. So you know he'll ask me a bunch of random stuff,
and you can edit it out if you don't like it.
And then I'll pretend like there were no cuts. One cut. This is a one-cut interview. All right. All right. Well, let's
get into it.
Wherever you want to start. Yeah.
All right. Get my questions up here. All right.
Yep.
So, can you share a bit about your journey?
Yeah.
What inspired you from growing up in Humboldt County
Yeah.
and in a logging family,
Yeah.
to becoming a video game producer and a producer and creator of Overland Bound, a very successful YouTube channel.
Like you, backwoods country bumpkin, grew up on the Van Dusen River, a town of 360 people. I mean, it doesn't get much more rural than that. And then my dad worked for the Forest Service, and then my parents split before I can remember, just shadowy memories. But then my dad married into a logging family, and Okerstrom Logging out of Willits, and so for a while, short while, I was a logger. I was a choker setter. So in the world of deadliest occupations, there's a show on it. Choker setters. It's I know it enough to say, you know what, I kind of want to do something else. But that's my background is being in the outdoors. And my dad was an environmentalist for sure. Very responsible individual. Used to take us backpacking all the time. It was about that was about what it was like growing up. And he would take me out and he would frickin' grill us. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but he'd be like, you need to know the name of those plants. You need to know what's edible. You need to know this kind of thing, that kind of thing. And for me, it was just growing up. But as with most of us, I was like, I'm going to be somebody. As soon as I was a teenager, I was like, okay, I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to get out of this small town and I'm going to go do stuff. And so, I was really into film. I'm still into film. Star Wars had a big impact on me because after my parents split, it was the first time I saw my dad in a really long time. And it was the first time I was on a jet airplane and we flew to Sacramento and I hadn't seen him in like years. And he pops through the front door and says, I'm taking you to Star Wars. I was like, what the heck is this? But because of that, it was very impactful. That got me into film and media.
Yeah.
So
Which was it the episode 4? 1977.
Yeah, 1977 in the theaters. Point of trivia: I've been in a Star Wars film. You can see me on screen, and it is the re-release special edition, and that's another point of trivia. If we go out on the trail together, you can ask me about it. But
we gotta wait till we're on the trail.
Yeah, because otherwise this is going to be a 16-hour video. We're going to kick this out in 45 minutes, Jim. All right. So I really was into film. Out of college, I started learning computer graphics. Paramount sucked me up because at the time, computer-generated visual effects wasn't a thing. And so it was a great opportunity for me, kid out of the country, and then this big executive from Paramount is like, "Hey, that thing you're doing, I need you to come down here. Does that sound okay?" And this kid, I ate my Subway sandwich on the bridge of the Enterprise D, sitting in Patrick, in the captain's chair.
Not Patrick Swayze, Patrick Stewart.
Stewart, yep. Talked to Patrick Stewart when he was in costume, and learned later that you're never supposed to sit in the captain's chair. But I entered into mass media entertainment, and that got me on that journey. Well, here's where Overland Bound comes in. That wrapped up. I moved back to San Francisco. I'm doing it all on my own because my family's of very modest means. I think you can relate. Just very modest means. Mm-hmm. So everything I did, I was doing on my own. So I was eating rice and ketchup in San Francisco. I was like, how am I going to do this? And a video game developer said, "Hey, heard about the stuff you're doing." I had a job back then, and I networked all the computers in the store to render my animations. So he saw it, and he said, I want you to come and make video games with me." And I said, "I don't want to make video games. I want to make film." And now remember, I'm poverty at this point. And he's like, "I'll pay you $50,000 a year." Now we're going to talk about real numbers in this video. We're not hiding anything. Okay, so like $50,000. He's like, "I'll pay you $50,000 a year," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I am rich."
What year was that?
That was 1993, 94.
So just to give the audience a perspective,
Yeah.
at that time, what
Yeah.
were the video games of that era?
NBA Jam. So Electronic Arts was up and coming at that time.
Yeah.
Doom came out. It was with a raycast engine, blew everybody's mind because it was 3D. No, it wasn't. Blew everybody's mind. But NBA Jam came out, and it was the first time a video game made more money than the highest grossing movie that year. Very first time. Now that's not surprising, but at the time, it made everyone go, whoa. And so video games arrived. And I arrived at the same time. So lucky me, right? Right place, right time. So I said, I don't want to do that. I want to make movies. And he said, I'll pay $50,000 a year. And I said, I love video games. And so I got into the video game career.
You had to start adulting.
I had to start adulting. But I'll be honest, as you know, not near as much as later on in my life. You know, this was amateur adulting, right? I started adulting, but I was like, hey, I had to take a job, right? And you're right. At the time, I was like, I want to make movies and do special effects at Industrial Light and Magic. I don't want to make video games, and so it was kind of, for somebody of that age, a compromise where I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this because I can't not eat. I need to go and make some money. I was trying to put myself through school. I went to the film school at San Francisco State, but I could not afford it. So I never finished it. And I beat myself up for so many years because of that. I'm like, you failed. And it was a big old thing for me. But now looking back, I'm like, dude, you did not fail. You had no help. You were trying to, pay for college, go to school and then live in San Francisco and all the things. And so it's like, I don't see it so much as a failure anymore.
No, it's not at all.
Okay.
And even if it was,
yep,
that's still part of what got you to where you are today. And without that,
yep,
where you are today would be different.
Now, let's say right up front, even given the trials and tribulations of Overland Bound, you guys all know, you guys have been on the journey with me. Given the trials and tribulations, I wouldn't change a thing for that reason. Is because you can't second guess the past. You're here and you're the person you are because of everything that's happened.
Yeah,
so that is absolutely true.
The best you could do with the information that you had at the time. That's all you can do.
So, video game career. I started working with this, kind of crazy dude, Will Wright, on SimCity. And, after SimCity, he started making this dollhouse prototype. And, he'd say little things of wisdom that now we look back and we're like, the guy's a genius. But he would say, have it or double it. That's it. Don't bother with anything else, like in-game design or, lots of things. But I was making, prototype furniture for Will in the Dollhouse project. Everybody thought the project was crazy, and that became The Sims, the largest grossing video game of all time. I got none of that, by the way. I was an artist. I was a 3D artist at the time, CG artist. Yeah. But let's fast forward. Pretty good stint in the game industry, over a decade, I think, and then my life completely, I shouldn't say completely. I had a really hard time, in life. My dad died rather suddenly and too young. My stepdad, who was he was a very strong driving, he was a very noble guy, and so I learned a lot from John as well. He died about the same time. And then, I'll even say, I told you guys this is going to be a very honest video. I'll even say with that tragedy that the thing that affected me the most at that time was my divorce. That was horrible. I had met my childhood sweetheart. I met her when I was in the 7th grade. And, we thought, it was meant to be. And we went through this a divorce. That was awful. I had 2 kids, 2 very young kids. I was still changing Miguel's diapers. You guys remember how young he was at the beginning of Overland Bound. But all of this happened at once, and it greatly contributed to the creation of Overland Bound because I was driving around this little silver convertible BMW, and I was driving back from Humboldt County in this little convertible BMW, and I was on a quarter tank, no big deal. I'll get down to Laytonville, and the snow built up. Guy in front of me slid to a stop. I slid. I was stuck in the snow with my 2 little kids. I'm on less than a quarter of a tank of gas, and it's frickin' freezing outside. And just that little thing, I was like, never again. Never. I am not going to be in this situation again. Got out of it. Thank you, CHP, California Highway Patrol. And then with all this tragedy, I broke. I'm fucking broke, and the result of that was I bought myself a damn truck that I still have the 80 series Land Cruiser, and I'll never get rid of it because I do say it saved my life. And I had colleagues in the video game industry, and these a lot of my friends didn't know about going outside and that you could spend the night outside by yourself and all that kind of thing. So it all kind of came together. Bought that truck, and I went and I disappeared for 3 or 4 days in the great outdoors, which I was completely comfortable doing because it's how I grew up. I'm like, I'm out of here, and it was really liberating because it was like, oh, all the things you're gonna pack. I was like, nope, I got a freaking 2.5 gallon jug of water, and I've got warmth, so I don't give a shit. I'm going. And I just disappeared. And that moment, I will say, like I say it saved my life. I was doing some dumb shit when I was going through that tragedy. Another little Michael chapter. So I have like 15 years of Kung Fu training, right? So I've trained a lot. I was meeting heavyweight boxers in a abandoned warehouse downtown Oakland so I could fight. And then I'd go to a bar. And I would go to a bar all bloodied up, and I'd order 2 beers. And I said, give me 1 to drink and give me 1 to put on my fucking forehead. And I was drinking, and I was just like, I was a train wreck. And when I came out of that, Overland Bound was there to save me, really. And I did that thing, and I was like, God, I got to share this with everybody, because I took a look at my life, and I was like, you think you're doing your kids any good right now? You think you're, having a positive impact on the people around you? No, you are corrosive. Because I was walking down the street angry. And so, having that time outside with no distraction to reflect, I brought it all together. And I'm like, not only that, but it made such a difference in my life. I want to share that with people and just let them know that there is a path that they can go out into, into nature too. And it really will do them some good. If you come back with a little bit more perspective, and I won't get on my soapbox here, but, with a little bit more perspective, you're a little bit more grounded, then you're there for other people. And I needed to be there for my kids, and I needed to be there for, the people in my life. And that's when it all started turning around, and Overland Bound started.
So you had the truck.
I had this truck.
You had the inspiration.
I lucked into that truck. Yeah, I had the truck and I had the inspiration.
You lucked into that truck. Have you already told that story many times, or you
I'll give the brief version. I said the last story was going to be the brief version. The brief version is I needed capabilities. I had kids, and so I had a list of capabilities that I needed. I looked, and what it boiled down to at the time was, and this is 2010, that I could afford. It came down to the Discovery or the 80 series Land Cruiser, and then I looked at the true cost of ownership between the two to make a decision, and they were night and day different. And I was like, well, do I have a garage right now? Am I going to be doing all the maintenance? No, I'm not. So I don't really want to spend a lot of time fixing the thing up. So I went with the 80 series Land Cruiser, knew what I wanted. I wanted it to be black. It had to have the front and rear locking differentials, e-lockers, and I just set an alert in Craigslist. Craigslist is this thing back in the day. No, but I set an alert in Craigslist, and one came up, and I thought I was a fool for spending $11,000 on an 80 series Land Cruiser with 90,000 miles on it, but I did.
What year was it at that time?
That was 2010, like 2009.
And what year was the 80 series?
96.
Okay, so it was already 14 years old.
Yeah, it was already 14 years old. Yeah, I thought I was a fool. Now you cannot get one of those 80 series Land Cruisers, for that amount and with those little miles. So looked into it, yeah. But I got that, so I have the inspiration, I have the truck.
Okay, so you had the truck, the inspiration. Were there any missing pieces at that time when you were trying to put this together that I guess, seemed to you unobtainable?
Jim, in terms of the truck, or in terms of Overland Bound, or in terms of what?
Well,
aspect?
when you first started with Overland Bound, what was your vision? What was your dream of what Overland Bound was going to be?
I didn't know. I knew two things. I knew I started a video game company at a very young age during the .com boom, the first one, when the internet was like just a thing, and it was very complicated. So I said, no matter what Overland Bound becomes, by the way, I failed here too, I want Overland Bound to be very simple. And then the other thing was I wanted it to have as big a voice as possible, because I was on a mission. I wanted to share that with people, and that was the goal, is for those who, didn't know, there was something wrong in their life, but they didn't know what it was. They hadn't touched grass in a while, I wanted to make sure people at least knew this is a thing that they could do, check it out, go away for a couple of days and see if it helps ground you. Go and spend that time with Mother Nature. And so those are the two things that I knew.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, another thing was I was in the video game industry. The community told me, so behind the scenes again, y'all's got numbered badges. So my video game background came into that. And I was like, I don't know how or why, but I want to put numbers on these badges, because first of all, I don't want to be number one, because I want that to be a member of the community. So I took 0, right? So I'm like, but I want a badge and I want a number, so I'll take quad 0, Overland Bound. And then I knew I wanted each badge to be distinct for each member that joined. And there was some video game instinct in there. I said, I think that will make people feel special, because there's a mechanic in there, and now you guys are hearing the video game maker come out, but there's a mechanic in there that is unique. I have a special thing. It is for me, and it's more meaningful. I was thinking about the badges, but the community told me. The community was like, no, because we had a very small community on the forums back in the day. Kevin McHouston, Lifestyle Overland, and family, thank you. They were on very, very early. Kevin was one of the first Overland Bound, members in the forums. But the community, as it started to grow, the community was what instructed me, told me. They were like, I don't know what your idea about the number is, dude, but that's me. That is me. I was like, oh, aye, copy that. So that's how that happened, yeah.
How did Overland Bound develop? So you mentioned the forums.
Yeah.
So when you put this together,
yeah,
what was like its first inception, and then how has it progressed over time? And like around what year did
Yeah.
When you push the button,
Yeah.
you're on what?
Yes.
What
Early on
platform?
Instagram. Early it was Instagram.
Okay.
And back in 2010, I was like, oh, this I'm a tech guy. Maybe a lot of you guys don't know that. I'm a tech guy. I'm like, am I a tech guy? I think I'm like, I'm not a tech guy. I'm a backwoods country bumpkin. I work for Meta, making virtual reality video games on cutting edge hardware. I'm a freaking tech guy. All right, so I'm a tech guy. So back in the day, in 2010 on Instagram, I thought Instagram was done. I was like, that's past because things tend to move really quickly. Yeah. So, but I went to Instagram as part of sharing the story, and I went to YouTube for the same reason. Somebody that I worked with, she said, you should start a YouTube channel and share. And this YouTuber thing was not a thing, right? It was like go back to 2009 and watch YouTube videos from 2009 and 2010, and that's when I started. I was like, well, I guess people are watching videos on YouTube, so I started the YouTube channel again, not to share the word about what you need in order to go off grid and have an adventure. But then I said quickly, how did it really spark? And there was a little bit of angst that I had because, first of all, inanimate objects piss me off sometimes. I'm not like Mr. Mellow guy, and you guys know that. I try. I try to be calm.
That's more me.
Thank you. So I was bothered because I grew up in the woods fixing shit on the trail and just getting at it. And then when I got into this overland scene, first of all, it wasn't the term that it became. It wasn't as popular a,
it wasn't a
thing. It wasn't a
term.
It wasn't even really. It wasn't. And then I got into it and I was like, well, there's these guys. I'm going to go in, I'm going to talk to those guys about, what's the latest, greatest? I haven't been doing this for like 15 years. Like, what's the haps? What's the now? What's good? You would have thought I was trying to get into the yacht club. That's how I felt. No disrespect. Like, this is not the rule, it's the exception. But I really found a lot of barriers to really basic information, and the people that were telling me or resisting the information or, kind of shoveling it out or, validating your realness or capability didn't know as much about it as I did, because I freaking grew up doing it. He's telling me, how to do things, but only if I am doing it in the right way. And so that just, I was like, copy that. All right, Batman, got you. And so that really also kicked off Overland Bound. And you guys all know that it's like Overland Bound is like we all started somewhere. I don't care about your background. I don't care what you drive. We started with a slogan, it doesn't matter what you drive, because, as you guys know, it matters where you drive it. You drive a Forester as well as a couple of trucks, but your Subaru, yeah. Jim, you're not going to take...
It's the Outback. Wilderness, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to take that where you might take one of your trucks, right? There's a difference.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Okay.
I'm going to try.
Yeah.
I might break shit, but
so
I'm going to try.
Matters where you drive it, but it doesn't matter what you drive. And so just that big, we wanted, to support everyone. And so that also kind of kickstarted Overland Bound. I didn't see a community out there that was friendly and, well, as friendly as I would like it to be, And so, and we've, really been on top of that in terms of the community. We bird dogged that. That's been very core to our community. And we have a set of founding principles. Those of you back in the early days, you guys remember the founding principles. You can still find them on the website. And it's like, this is how we conduct ourselves as humans, to be good to one another and support one another. So that became very important to us.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things that drew me into when I discovered Overland Bound
Yeah.
and started exploring that. I was deployed at the time, around 2016, and watched a few of your videos, and it was like I felt this connection
Yeah.
with, you know, the community and with what you were saying. You know, your slogan
Yeah.
was what really cemented it for me.
Yeah. Great. It came from a genuine place,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, it came from a genuine place. It was like, we want to share this with as many people as possible. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're well on the way.
Okay,
All right.
so a little bit of angst. We got some elements came together. We got Overland Bound. Now Overland Bound's rolling. Yeah, so now it's kicked off.
It's kicked off. All right. When do you feel it became successful?
I still don't feel that way.
Why not?
You know, we went on a journey. I leveraged my expertise in software development with the intent to provide more people the tools they need to safely travel off-road. And so that is offline maps, a connection to a community, a way to get together as a community and plan events. And I felt like that was a missing piece that we needed to, in addition to just creating the forum, literally and figuratively, for adventure travelers to get together and share information, support one another. I felt like we needed to create a platform that enabled it through technology so that people could feel more comfortable and safe having these really extreme adventures, let's be honest. Like, you know, I am, you know, I think of it as no big deal, you know, because I literally a lifestyle. It's the way I live my life, you know, and I've been in some pretty scary situations, you know, really. And I felt like as the, you know, not creator, as the enthusiastic cheerleader of these really risky adventures, we needed to create supporting technology to enable that. So people are safe. They can talk to one another. They have the tools they need. They have locations. They have information, and so they don't get themselves in a situation where they may come to harm. And so we went down that path, and I know how expensive software development is. I know that. I went into it eyes wide open, but that effort came at great expense and a lot of stress and focus, and ultimately put Corey and I in a situation where I had to stop doing Overland Bound because we were in debt, and we weren't making the money back. And so, you know, we were well into the six figures underwater, and very stressful for Corey and I. So, you know, the tales that y'all have, and when I'm sharing my story, I don't think it's dissimilar from a lot of folks that are out there, in that all families and marriages have things that they need to navigate that are very hard. And this was one of them. Yeah, this was one of them for us. And it's just like, I had to adult, you know, and we talked about that earlier. And I really had to adult in two ways. My I had to adult for my daughter because she struggles with mental health. And in a lot of ways, I hope I did right by her. I don't know. But then also, with Overland Bound, when we talk about, is it do I feel like it was a success? I feel like I didn't get it where I wanted it to be, and I got to a point where I had to take some of my attention away from Overland Bound because I had to go adult. I had to go and get a job and make sure that my kids had health care and make sure that my wife and the community knows that Corey struggles with rheumatoid arthritis, and she has to have health care. And so that's why I say, I still don't feel like it was a success. Now, the app's pretty damn good. So I'm not saying it's not good, but it didn't get where I needed it to be. And certainly from a financial perspective, it didn't turn into a flywheel of resources that I could pour back into Overland Bound, right? I would love to have the resources to make sure that the forum, all the things, right? That it was just, our community, it's like, hey, win Android Auto, win Apple CarPlay, win these things that we really want. And it's like, I can't do that today, so that's why I say, not a success. In my probably selfish and ignorant viewpoint, and I think that by a lot of measures it was a success. So importantly, the thing that the community doesn't always see, the community does see stories of people who have positively had their life changed through Overland Bound. So the way it's a success is that on my deathbed, I can pass and say I did that. That's good. I'm good because Corey and I we get the one-on-one communication from our members, and people that literally is like, I was literally in my truck in the middle of nowhere to end my life, and I found your fucking forum, and you brought me back. And that's one example, and there are many examples, right, that are just day to day. This has been a really positive addition to my life, and we have a photo. I wish I had it. You know who you are. Frickin' jet fighter pilot over Afghanistan, frickin' hanging it out.
Can you tell me about that?
And he's holding up the Overland Bound patch with his number on it. Just says, thank you. And just like, so.
Wait, he was taking the jet on a trail using Overland Bound?
No. Yeah. No, he's just doing his thing. He was protecting our nation. But he held up the Overland Bound patch and took a photo and said, thank you. And I'm just like, so moments like that, in the small ways, I personally consider it not yet a success. But in the big ways, it is a success. Yeah. In a lot of big ways, it is a success because we've had a positive impact.
Yeah. It, from my own experience, it had a positive impact for me too.
Yeah.
It got me going in a direction of like something else out there that I can work towards. Yeah. And so.
You know why this is a great conversation? This is a great conversation because it reminds me, we all do, live in the now, live in the last 5 minutes, the last 24 hours. And so in the last 24 hours, I've been thinking, what can I do to support Overland Bound more? And that's where my head is these days. And that's why I think I had the immediate response where I'm like, it's not a success yet. But this is a great reminder in this conversation that, there's a different way to look at that. In a lot of ways, it is a big success. So it's a good reminder.
Yeah. Everything is based on perspective. Yeah. And our perspectives are continually being changed by outside things within the world, our family, everybody's situation is constantly fluctuating. Yeah. And so, listening to you talk about this, you consider some things to be a big success. It's not quite there where you want it yet. Yeah. And the whole time I'm sitting here, thinking, well, what would it ever reach a success for you? You know,
Good question.
it's part of that drive,
Yeah,
you know, that it's never finished. It's never completely done.
you're right. And you and I were talking before
The hour and a half we spent setting up everything.
before all these cameras were rolling. I have that monster in the back of my head that I'm never doing enough. So to your point, you know, would I ever say Overland Bound is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's there. I don't know that I would. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And the other side of that is, would you want it to? Because once it's done,
Yeah.
that's when complacency sets in,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
there's no more innovation, no more things
Yeah.
to move. Not only the concept of what Overland Bound is, but you personally, you know, what moves you forward, and then what,
Yeah.
because that's going to directly affect the community. You know,
Correct.
the community is all around this idea that
Yeah.
you sparked.
Yeah.
You know, so that's actually that's a good little tangent there. What do you see Overland Bound? How do you see it continuing
Yeah.
after you're gone?
Well, related to another question you've asked, which is how has the Overland Bound community changed or matured in the last year? And it's somewhat related. Um, I haven't been on YouTube. I've taken a break. You know, and I've always had this idea. It's like if Overland Bound is going to survive me, it has to be self-sustaining. It can't be the, you know, Michael funnel, because I can go on YouTube. I can, you know, during the pandemic, and I was doing a video a day, and for the longest time I was doing a video every week. I can do that. But if the community is dependent on that, it's not really its own thing. It's not being, I want it to be self-sustaining, and I want it to survive me, to your point. And so, you know, a lot of that is in, you know, trying to build up the support, build up the community, and have a sustainable business model, because that's what makes the world go round, that allows Overland Bound to survive me. But I'll always be a part of Overland Bound, and Overland Bound will always be a part of me. But it's really, you know, we're trying to mature Overland Bound to a point where it would survive me, where it continues. And I think, you know, if I could achieve that goal, it'd be great. But I got a lot of,
Sounds like you're raising another kid.
yeah, you know, warts and all. Yeah, you know, yeah, really.
It's
really.
very, very similar. You know?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's no end of ideas, you know, that I have for the community and further software development and other things. So I'm working, and that takes up my time. Corey is 100% Overland Bound and managing the business and seeing to what we can, but her resources are limited because she doesn't have the funding to do anything, you know. And so, you know,
You're not giving her an allowance or anything?
no, hey, I make an okay living, but we don't do that good, you know. I mean, you know, no. So Overland Bound is a business, and she is the CEO of that business. And so she, you know, is min-maxing, and it is more than a full-time job for her. So, you know, she, by virtue of her being able to focus on it and her own skill set, she is able to keep the lights on for the community, and that's what she's doing. You know, but I'm really, you know, focused on the day job. But neither one of us have a shortness, you know, of ideas and things that we would like for Overland Bound to become. You know, if you can just facilitate communication better for you know, between members, you know, then you're doing a lot to grow the community and Overland Bound and that support network. But it takes technology, and technology is complicated, and you know, it's funny, when Overland Bound started, technology was like, I'm an old man now, right? Like by a lot of measures. And so I think, I'm still like, you know, I speak about technology as if it's new, but people joining the Overland Bound community are completely fluent with AI. It's like, yeah, it's not new. Or, how you market a business, like just the fact that, anybody out there right now that has a business understands how Google AdWords works, or how Facebook ads work. Everybody understands that, but I still think of it as new. So what am I getting at? That whole infrastructure is expensive, and including iOS. So like if we want our app to support the business, we have to get it in the hands of more people. If we want to get it in the hands of more people, we have to pay Apple. And there are things about Apple that I've learned, that they make great products, but an example, if if I say, I would like my members, I would like somebody that types in the iOS App Store, Overland Bound One, I would like to be at the top of that list. Apple's like, no. That's going to go to this other app. If you want to be the top, $20 per person that does a search. So that's how the ecosystem works. Otherwise, you're going to be somewhere down below the first, even if they type in our app, So all of this stuff is just part of running a business these days. But it's costly for what we want to do, because on the software side, we're in the technology space. And so we're doing things to get back there, to have more resources. And Craig, thank you. Steve Wetherill, thank you for the ongoing support that they provide. Craig is this software developer on the mobile side who does more than he's paid for. And Steve Wetherill, the same. He's our CTO. The guy's brilliant. And he does more than he's paid for. So thank you guys. But we're working on things to try and get it better, and to try and get it so that we have more resources, more people are using it. And so that's our journey, but it's a slow journey.
Yeah.
All right, where are we at?
$400 boots.
All right. These are Alden 405s. And I'll show you what they go with. And some of those out there know, because in the comments section, I showed my boots for half a second, and someone said, "Are those Alden 405s?" These boots are carpenter's boots. They are the boots that Harrison Ford wore as a carpenter. Not these boots, but the style. They've been made the same way since 1800s. And they're the same boots that he wore for Indiana Jones. So they're Indiana Jones boots. And they are handmade, and they lifetime warranty, and which I've taken advantage of. They will just repair them, no questions asked, and them back to you. Only boots you'll ever buy. Yeah, they're $400. Now, why do I have them? Because my wife knows that I like Indiana Jones, and she loves me very much.
The way you described them, they're exactly like $200 Red Wings.
Yeah, they're
Just without the Indiana Jones aspect to it. All right, I get it. Okay, the forums.
Yeah.
Not being on the forums.
So shout out to Kent Reynolds, who is on the forums, and he watches over the community, and anything that is needs attention, he'll reach out to Corey and I, and also to our friend Jim, who also watches over the forums, and just our Overland Bound community. They all kind of, founding principles. They understand the ethos of Overland Bound, and they all kind of bird dog the community, and the whole goal of the community is that we treat it like a living room. So where, what I mean by that is like you and I sitting here, right? Where we're in front of each other, and I'm going to treat you. I should treat you the same on the forums that I would treat you in person, and that's a little bit different. And so I have great confidence that the forums are in good hands. I am alerted to things that need attention, and honestly, Kent likes to keep me out of the forums. Not really. He doesn't. He'd love to have me in the forums, but sometimes we've seen that when I go into the forums, it creates more. It might do more harm than good, or it turns into a big long thread, and then it requires attention just to make sure it goes in the right direction. So I very much appreciate the forums. I used to check my messages, every single one of my personal messages on the forums, but it's I don't do that as much anymore. I just know it's in good hands, and I'll get back there someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't read 56,000
Yeah.
messages and emails every day.
Yeah.
All right. Is Overland Bound done?
No, it's not. It is going through a transition, as we've talked about in this video, and we're trying to figure out how to strengthen it, make it more than it is today, and that includes on all fronts. So podcast and reaching out to members and software development as well. But it is, as we are today, most accurate to say we have stabilized. So, it might not be
not flatline.
Exactly. It might not be, apparent to the, folks in the community, but a year and a half ago, before I took that job, it was dire. And, there are friends of ours, and who we're talking to, where honestly we're in debt to, because there was a big swell during COVID when everybody was adventuring out, and so we became overextended in certain areas, and then when it stopped quickly, and so we did pretty good, because we're responsible, but still it was hard to course correct that. And so we scaled way back. We scaled our software development, way back. Though we're still doing it, we're still updating the app, but we just scaled back. And now we're at a good spot where we've stabilized. And so our goal is to go beyond that and start incrementally growing. And the goal for incrementally growing is to provide those tools and support for our members and be there in a big way. So that's the goal, and that's what we're working on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. The Red Arc.
I go back and forth with Red Arc. So yeah, redundancy, simplicity. The best part is no part. But Red Arc is complicated, and I'm on my second battery sensor with that setup, third battery sensor with that setup. And when it goes out, it's like, it's not going to charge your battery. So I think I'm going to keep it, but what I have is overkill for what I need. The Red Arc system, this relates to specifically the console project, and the console looks very good, by the way. I am working on the console, but the Red Arc system goes into the console system, and it is complicated, but it's also nice in terms of battery management and also the programmable functions in the Red Vision display. So I like it, but I also have switches for critical components, spotlights and things of that nature. I have them on a rocker in case the Red Arc goes down. So we have a love-hate is too strong, but I go back and forth. I'm like, When it works, it's freaking great, but it can never not work,
Yeah.
so,
Planes are like that.
and elevators. Anyway, so yeah, I like it, but it's a lot.
Speaking of the console,
Yeah. So Parnell and I do stuff, if you've seen the videos, quickly, because Parnell is very fast. So we put the console in, but then I got distracted with new job and, new things. And then we moved as well. So we're no longer in, I'm no longer in a convenient distance to Parnell, which is why Parnell and I aren't hanging out more. We moved out into the sticks, which I love, and reminds me of home, of course. And so I've been very comfortable out here. But with the job and everything, the finish work on the console and my kitchen, it took a pause. But now I started working on it again, and the console itself looks very good. I mean, but it's body work. I've got lots and lots of hours into just doing the finish work on the console, but it will get done, and my goal is to have it done by this spring. So when we roll out, we have a nice console. So I'm working on it.
okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yep.
How has the Overland Bound community grown or evolved in the past year?
Well, this is related to some of the other things that we've talked about, which is I'm definitely in the back seat. And so we're, the community is becoming a more self-sustained community currently. And, I think that has been a conscious effort, surviving me again. It's been a conscious effort. I would say it is a midway through that. It's not something that I can say, we did that. That's great. The community is thriving, and, it's growing, and, there's more that we need to do there, but that's been a big change, a big evolution for the community. If you think of it, an inevitable one, probably, but, it's not, it's a work in progress for sure.
What are your plans for your rig?
Pretty happy with it. I still have to take care of Frank, because he gave me an unintentional loan for a little while. I'm paying you back, Frank. So he did quite a bit of work on the truck, so it's in a pretty darn good spot. If you've seen some of the videos, I had an electrical problem for years and years that we couldn't track down. Well, Frank finally tracked it down. So from an electrical, standpoint, it's pretty good. I need to tidy up some of that. I need to put the new KC floodlights on the bumper. I put the light bar on top. And then KC is another example of a product where they're like, here, and if it's in a video, great. Well, it's on the top of my truck. And so,
Yeah, you shot that video with me.
Yeah, and we did that video together. That was great. Maybe we'll make a painfully long video about putting 2 floodlights on the front bumper. So I got to put the floodlights on the front bumper again, but then finish up the console, and then replace one of my AGM batteries. And I want to find a solution for my relay box. I have YouTube videos about how to make your own relay box, and it works great. I just would like to see if there's something out there that reduces the footprint of that. Got to finish up the kitchen with Parnell. That's been on our books for a while. And again, we're at finish work, but still have not done that because, again, that was put on pause. But need to finish that. And then I think I'm pretty darn happy. I'm finally happy with the suspension. The engine runs like a mule. It's great. Drawer system is good. So I think that kind of summarizes. Think that summarizes everything. Now, eventually, I would love to do a deeper refresh of the entire vehicle. So pulling out the interior, really doing freshening it up, doing the body, and bringing it up to its 1990s glory. A vehicle that old has certain things that don't work as well as they used to. Like, I discover interior lights that I never knew the truck was supposed to have, or dimmer switches, or lights on the prindle, or little things like that that just eventually, give the ghost. So I'd like to do a deeper refresh, but that's basically the summary on the truck.
All right.
Yeah. Cool.
Do you prefer mountain ranges, coastal drives, or desert trails for overlanding?
I prefer mountain ranges. I like, especially out around where I live in the Sierra, out here in California. I really enjoy the alpine lakes, the rocky trails, areas like Bald Mountain out by Camp Edison, up Highway 108. I really enjoy the terrain around here. It's kind of like where I grew up, and I like getting lost in those back roads and finding great little spots. I also really like Utah.
Yeah.
So Utah and the mountains around here are pretty close, and I have a lot of fond memories in Utah. So yeah, but I would say mountain ranges if I had to pick one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most memorable location you've ever explored?
Emotional, and then through a different lens. Emotional, the place I went with my 80 just after I got it and disappeared for 5 days. And that was out a Highway 4, out around the Lake Alpine. It's about 20 minutes this side of maybe 15 minutes this side of Lake Alpine on Highway 4. Some old Forest Service roads, and drove out that direction and found a very simple campsite by a creek, and I have very fond memories of that specific location, and I like to go back there from time to time. But on the other side, it is probably Canyonlands in Utah, and I don't know if you can still go there, but at the time you could drive up to a cliff and camp right there, and it was a very long drop. But I like Spring Bottom Trail in Utah, in that general area, and there are a couple of other paths, Long Canyon in Utah, which I really, really enjoy. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Because you started, you were at the earlier versions of Overland Expo, correct?
Yeah, it depends on your view. 2014 or 2015, I think, was the first year that I went out there, when it was at the dry lake beds.
And there was only one at the time, right?
Yeah, there was only one.
And now
yeah,
there's,
that's right.
what, 3?
Now there's lots. Yeah.
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 How, what's your opinion on how that has developed over the last few years?
I think it's a good showcase for people that are interested in getting started in overlanding, because first of all, you leave your wallet in the truck, in your car, and then go and check out all the gear that is available and out there. Overlanding is not a thing, it's what you make it, and it's very different and personal for each individual. So you get to see so many things. Compared to what it was, it was really about meeting with our community in the early days, and that's what we did. And we sat around a campfire, and it was really community based. And then we had a booth at the expo for a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and the whole focus of that was as a social hub, and it was that aspect of it was really, really good. Then as it changed over the years, we kind of kept doing that, but it grew up around us and became, much more. And then we kind of backed down from that because a couple of different reasons. One, we were still meeting with our friends, and we could do it regardless of the expo itself. But we would walk around and visit with people as opposed to have a booth. When you get a booth, there's a lot that goes with that. And so honestly, we felt we were more comfortable walking around and talking to people, and we would do that. And so that's kind of like what our experience with Expo has been, as it's exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the crowdfunding.
Yeah. So that's been 3 years ago. So thankfully, because of that, we do have the software. We have Overland Bound One, and that was the goal for the crowdfunding. At the time, the industry was really exploding. So our hope, the reason we went crowdfunding as opposed to going the more traditional, I don't know, but going the route of investment capital where you're going to an investor and just going a more traditional route was because let's give our community the opportunity to participate in the thing they helped build, because that's what Overland Bound is. It is a community. Now, it's taken longer than expected because after COVID, everything cooled down a little bit. And so in terms of a return for those investors, it's taking longer, but it's all still very valid. So it was a way to have a piece of Overland Bound and what it is that we built. And then as we build it, our hope is that that returns to the folks that believed in us and that they get something in return. So that's the goal, but it's on a longer timeline for sure. And no, I don't think anybody is confused about that.
What's one thing you would like people to take away from your story?
Yeah.
Whether it's about creativity, resilience, or exploration?
That's interesting. Noble intent, maybe, in everything that we do, whether you're pursuing something creative or an endeavor like Overland Bound, that the partner to your endeavor should be, noble intent, right? It gives back to humanity in some way. If it happens to be a creative narrative, piece of work, then maybe you're inspiring somebody or you're lifting them up somehow by making them laugh. If you're, creating on the software side, that you are doing something that you feel is going to help people or is filling a need, and that, it is a up and down journey. You may have noble intent, but maybe it doesn't always come across that way. And as flawed humans, we're not perfect at executing that at all times. But if you have noble intent, that's probably the most important thing to underscore, your creative journey or anything you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is what the definition of nobility is.
Tell me.
My understanding is that it's just trying to be a little bit better than you were yesterday.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes that's hard. It makes you have to look at stuff.
Who wants to do that?
Where we at?
This is probably the most important question of all.
Okay.
Where can people go to learn more about Overland Bound?
Overlandbound.com. Now, overlandbound.com, you probably want to go over to the forums if you want to connect to the community, but you can surf the menus and get there. That's probably where to go, get the app. Now, the app, the most, the thing about that is it's a community connection, so you can very easily see what people are talking about, and then you can look at it in terms of categories, or you can look at it as kind of a social feed, but it still has the organized information too. If you want to just get started, there's a whole host of videos on the Overland Bound YouTube channel, and most of them are informative and say something about overlanding and how to get started. But the Overland Bound site is really an access point into this adventure lifestyle that we lead. And there's probably Overland Bound members near whoever might be seeing this, and the forum and the website is also a connection for be able to do that. But you can go right now on your phone and get the Overland Bound One app. Yeah. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, till next time. See you on the trail. Outfit and explore.